Happy Thursday and welcome to your weekly briefing on SWBN News Watch. I am Chimela Chike. Thanks for joining us tonight. In China, the Christian Solidarity Worldwide has drawn attention to a statement released by the Jian Church of Abundance, also known as Fenshan. The statement released late February detailed the torture and mistreatment that 3 detained leaders of the church were subjected to in custody. 69-year-old senior pastor Lian Chanyan and his 41-year-old son, Pastor Lian Julian, and 38-year-old preacher Fu Zhuwan had been held under residential surveillance in designated location by Xi'an police since August 2022. The RSDL is a type of incommunicado detention that has been recognized by the United Nations as a form of forced disappearance. In mid-February this year, the 3 preachers were transferred to a detention center where they were allowed to meet with their respective lawyers for the first time. In a statement seen by the Christian Solidarity Worldwide (CSW), the church revealed that its 3 leaders were tortured while held in RSDL. Interrogators used a range of coercive means to obtain false statements. Xi'an police officers threatened senior pastor Lian that they would subject his son to beatings or forced food deprivation. On one occasion, he was not allowed to use the bathroom for 27 hours. The younger pastor, Lian Julian, was physically attacked 8 times, including in one incident which took place in the presence of his father. During the first month of his RSDL detention, he was often only given 1 steam bun and a half cup of water for a meal. As a result, his health has suffered greatly. Ms. Fu, one of the detained leaders, was also physically attacked and threatened multiple times. CSW's founder and president, Mervyn Thomas, said, and I quote, "We are appalled by the inhuman treatment these 3 pastors from Church of Abundance have endured while in police custody. We repeat our call on China to abolish the practice of RSDL detention, which leads to widespread torture and violates its obligation under the Convention Against Torture and other international treaties. The Chinese government must end its outrageous crackdown on unregistered religious groups and release the 3 pastors and all others who have been detained or jailed for their religious activities." On religious concerns in Afghanistan, the president and CEO of the Global Christian Relief, David Curry, is sounding the alarm about the dire situation in Afghanistan 18 months after U.S. forces left the nation. The Global Christian Relief is an organization devoted to uncovering Christian persecution and advocating for believers across the globe. Based on the CBN News report, Curry described the Taliban's theology as medieval, and his words, quote, "Their theology drives the way they see the world. It's a medieval interpretation of Islam. Women can't go to school, can't hold jobs, females' faces are covered, and that's not all." Curry said there are extreme, bizarre, brutal punishments being waged against anyone who challenges Islam or the Taliban, with other extremist groups like the Islamic State trying to push the Taliban to even more depraved behavior. With America's rapid exit in August 2021, the nation has fallen into total chaos, leaving Christians and other minority groups in dire situation. Christians and religious minorities within Afghanistan face enormous persecution, Curry said, noting many believers have escaped and left. The Christians that remain are on the ground and on the run, and we can't just look at this cut-and-run strategy as a long-term solution. End of quote. Meanwhile, this is what he told Billy Hallowell on the CBN News. Watch.
Have to the church, though. The church, and I'm speaking now as the head of Global Christian Relief, tried to challenge a church that has spent a lot of energy trying to get people, Christians, out of Afghanistan. And we got to start thinking about what we can do to help get Christians solidified, stabilized in the country, and maybe even think about how can we help and go into this country, this difficult area, and try to build the church and try to build, the influence in the name of Jesus in this region.
Release International, a UK-based group monitoring Christian persecution, marked the first anniversary of the Taliban's harsh rule with a news release indicating its belief that despite severe and even deadly restrictions, Christianity could exponentially expand. Despite noting the persecution of Christians is continuing unabated, Release International also stated that, quote, there are early signs that the Christian faith could be growing among Afghans despite or because of violent persecution. On persecution matters in Nigeria, the Church of the Brethren in Nigeria, better known by its Hausa derivative as Ecclesia Yanuwa Nigeria, EYN, said it has lost 1,390 local church auditoriums to Boko Haram insurgents, the Nation newspaper reported. The church, which started in Garkida in 1923, has its headquarters in Kwahi, Adamawa State. It has most of its local congregations in the state and the rest of the Boko Haram troubled northeast. Lamenting the situation, the president of the EYN, Reverend Joel Billy, told reporters in Kwahi that high numbers of members of the church were killed or abducted. He added that insurgency has also brought something good to the church. In his words, quote, many of those who had been displaced to distant places had become a blessing to the church as they had facilitated the establishment of branches in such places. Billy explained that God, in his faithfulness, used this insurgency to propagate the gospel and expand the frontiers of EYN in Nigeria and the Cameroons because those that were displaced carried their faith to wherever they went. Today, several EYN churches have sprung up in places where our members went to sojourn because of the insurgency, the EYN president said. Now, politics in Nigeria. In a recent dialogue on Arise TV's morning show, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, told the host that it was the wish of God to do the right thing. Obi said this when asked about his view on some clerics and prominent Nigerians' position that the outcome of the presidential election was God's wish, despite the recorded infractions. Obi, who said he was very respectful to prominent Nigerians, including clerics and traditional rulers, said, quote, I disagree with them. What they are actually preaching is the problem of Nigeria. Watch.
This as God's will. What do you have to say to that?
Well, I'm very respectful to prominent Nigerians, especially church leaders, traditional rulers, and all that. And I'm very respectful to them. And I think they should be respected for what they represent in our society, but I disagree with them. What they're actually preaching is the problem of Nigeria. The problem of Nigeria is accepting wrongdoing, accepting what is unacceptable. That is using God's name in vain. That's not what God said. God said, do not use my name in vain. So what they're saying is not God's wish. It is not God's plan for Nigeria. So why don't we accept that the 133 million Nigerians who are poor is God's wish? Why don't we accept that 95 million Nigerians living in absolute poverty is God's?
The Labour Party, also known as LP, and its presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, filed a lawsuit seeking access to materials used during the February 25th presidential and National Assembly election. This day reported that after days of pressure from LP, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, granted the party's legal team the opportunity to review materials that were used for last month's presidential election. Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Party and its presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, have withdrawn an application they filed to compel INEC to allow their agents to participate in the process of sorting out ballot papers that were used for the February 25th presidential election. A member of Atiku's legal team, who did not want his name mentioned, disclosed to Punch newspaper that the decision to withdraw the application was an outcome of a meeting his legal team held with the leadership of the electoral body. The Ouija board is once again in the headlines with outlets reporting 28 school-age girls in Colombia were hospitalized after reportedly playing with the oracle boards at their school. Fox News briefed that the incident purportedly unfolded among students at Galera's educational institution in Galeras, with the girls experiencing anxiety attacks, fainting, and other related issues after engaging with the board. Those impacted were sent to a local hospital. Their diagnoses are currently unclear at the time of this report. Hugo Torres, who leads the Galeras Educational Institution in Galeras, confirmed this report to Jam Press. But according to the New York Post, the school leader isn't necessarily happy with how the situation has been discussed publicly thus far and is urging people to wait for more details before rushing to judgment. Responding to this story, CBN News wrote that these tools have become more prevalent in our society, especially as God and faith are less emphasized and present in the culture. We've come to the end of tonight's edition of the SWBN News Watch. If you have any leads you want us to follow up on, please send an email to chimela.chike@swbn.tv or to standardwordstudios@gmail.com. Till we meet next Thursday 9 p.m., I remain Chimela Chike. Thanks for staying with us.